Hi, everybody, and welcome to the show. I'm Angela Hart. Today we have two guests with us. We're going to be discussing special needs, the future of special needs loved ones. That's for the first part. And for the second segment, we're going to have a business gentleman come on who's going to share with us ideas about marketing for business community. But first, welcome my first guest. They're going to introduce themselves to you, and they're parents of special needs loved ones, and they're also in the industry. So please share, Laura, your name and where you're from.
I'm Laura Timoney. I sit on Community Education Council 31, which serves all of Staten Island schools. I have a special needs daughter who is a senior in high school, and I am the Borough President's appointee devoted to helping special needs children and families.
Thank you very much. Donna, please introduce yourself to the viewers here and share your background at the middle camera.
My name is Donna Long. I am the Executive Director of the Grace Foundation. I am also the parent of a young adult, 38-year-old Janine, who is autistic. I've also been an advocate for the special needs community for 35 years.
Welcome. Terrific. It's very timely that our guests are here today because there's a lot going on with budgetary concerns. There's a lot of more children being diagnosed with special needs conditions on an annual basis than ever before. And so I thought it would be good to have some guests come on that can deal with the different issues regarding programs and education in particular. So the first thing, though, I wanted to ask Donna, what does GRACE stand for, the acronym GRACE?
GRACE stands for Getting Resources for Autistic Children's Equality.
That's the GRACE Foundation.
That's the GRACE Foundation.
You. Donna, what has been the mission of the GRACE Foundation, and what have been some of the accomplishments?
The mission has been to support, enhance, and educate families and children impacted by autism spectrum disorder. Our accomplishments have been to provide quality programs and services to families and children and young adults impacted by autism. We just recently moved into a new facility, and it enables us to expand our programs. We're on the grounds of Seaview on Brielle Avenue, and our numbers have increased tremendously to provide services. We have about 200 children right now that we're providing services to, and we have an extensive waiting list as well.
This is a concern, I understand.
It's a major concern. It's a major concern because we'd like to be able to provide services for every child and every family who has a need.
Okay, and we're going to speak about some of the services that you have and the ones that are in jeopardy of being taken away due to budgetary cuts. We want to talk about the financial end. And Laura, tell us what your accomplishments are, or your mission and your goal as the appointee for the borough president for this.
It's really to find out what are the needs that the children have out there that are not being met, and how do we help get services and programs on the island that'll address those needs. So that's been the real focus.
And how long have you been in that position?
I've been on the CEC now for 3.5 years, and this current year is my first year as the Borough President's appointee.
How is that different?
It's just really, it's not majorly different. It's just fulfilling some of the Borough President's agenda as well, which is really in line with what our agenda is, which is helping special needs children across the island.
And do you do this through the public education system? Tell us more about how the program works.
Sure. So we do it a couple of different ways. So a lot of times parents will come to us directly. We have a Community Education Council meeting the first Monday of every night at the Petrides Complex over on Ocean Terrace. So at 7:30, parents can come. They can bring their concerns to us. We can meet with parents individually. I've gone to IEP meetings, and I don't know if you know what an IEP is, but that's an individual education plan. So each child that has special needs has their own individual education plan. So I've gone with parents directly to help them, and basically now we're up to about 25% of our children on Staten Island have special needs.
Oh my goodness, viewers, I just learned this today from the guests. 25% of the children on Staten Island have a special need issue that has to be dealt with in the education arena, as well as what other arenas do we need to talk about?
Well, just in autism, the number is 1 in 68 individuals diagnosed with autism. And that number has gone up consistently.
However, what's going on with the services? Would you like to speak to that first?
Well, the services are still going on, but we have sustained some cuts, as well as other agencies on Staten Island that provide similar services, not only for individuals impacted by autism, but also all developmental disabilities. So it is a major concern for us of what the future holds for our children. And when I say children, they can be in their 30s and 40s
Right.
and 50s as well. And the concern is genuine. And it's been proven that by services, our children, are more productive, they're more independent, they lead a more quality of life. And that's what we'd like to see continue.
Excellent. And so what's going on with these cuts? Why, I mean, I understand that there are budgetary concerns. Where could the money maybe come from other areas to supplement and help grow special needs foundations?
Well,
Do you get private donors as well?
We do, and we do fundraising, but those are soft dollars, and those are dollars that may not be with us consistently. So you would not want to really begin a program with soft dollars because you could have it one year and not another year. The city and state funds that you get pretty much roll over from year to year, and that's
You can count
what
on
you
those.
can count on it, except lately it's been a little tough. It's been tough. We've had some rate rationalization, which
What does that mean?
Rate rationalization is that there's a specific rate for the Medicaid services that we provide, and there's a Medicaid rate, and it's every 15 minutes is a unit, and the state has reevaluated some of the rates, and across the board they have been cut. And
So the Medicaid pays for what for the child or the individual?
it pays for the individual to get that particular service.
And is it a medical service? Is it a psychological
No.
I mean, how do you deem that?
At Grace, we do ancillary services, which is recreation services, respite services. We do Medicaid service coordination, which is accessing the families through the system. We do in-home respite, where we have staff go into the home and work on goals with the individuals and the families.
That's what the word respite means
Respite.
with respect to this
Respite
situation?
would be anything that allows time and respite to the caregiver.
Oh, it's for the caregivers. I love that. That's so important because caregivers can get so drained and so exhausted, and they need a respite. That's wonderful.
And then respite for the programs that the individuals go to, which is a recreation program. We have a bowling program, a gym program, a little league program, and a swim program.
Oh, these are all so important.
Yeah, they really are. And we have a social skills program whereby we want our individuals to learn turn-taking, eye contact, and sharing, and many other activities. And through the program, so many of our children, the families tell us they never thought their child would have a friend. They never thought their child would be invited to a party. And we've seen such wonderful, beautiful, sustaining friendships through the social skills program, and all programs, because any program provides a social skill no matter what.
Oh, I'm glad to hear this. Laura, I'd like to know more about the alternate assessment issue that's going on in education right now. Will you educate the viewers, please, and myself?
Sure. So basically, alternate assessment, as you all are probably aware and have heard about it, you have Common Core assessments, right? Kids are taking tests, grades 3 through 8, ELA and math. Alternate assessment is basically designated for children that have severe cognitive disabilities who are not able to take those tests, so they're assessed in an alternate manner. What happens, though, a lot of these children that are alternately assessed, you could have a child that has special needs that maybe has some behavioral issues as well, and sometimes they're alternately assessed where they shouldn't be. It should really be for severe cognitive disabilities, and what happens is, down the road when you get to high school, this is where it impacts. You do not receive a high school diploma when you graduate if you are alternately assessed. So therefore, you cannot get a civil service job, you cannot be employed, you cannot go to college, you cannot join the military. And a lot of children that have gone down this path, it really leads to nowhere. It leads to you getting a certificate that you've attended school, but it's not a high school diploma.
this can be a serious issue for those children that could qualify to graduate legitimately.
Correct.
And go on in life with other social and educational and business endeavors.
Right.
What can be done about this?
I think what can be done about this is that you can actually reassess these children as they get older and make sure that maybe when they were younger, they did need to be alternate assessed. Maybe they had cognitive disabilities, but if you're testing for their cognitive skills later on, I know of one child, for example, who was alternately assessed, and the parents a lot of times aren't even aware. They just know their child isn't taking state testing, but they don't know the path that it leads down.
Oh, this is terrible. Wait a minute. Viewers, I would just want you to hear this again because it sounds like we need to get people to gather together and rally troops to speak out against this and
Right.
to educate the parents. This is very serious.
Yeah.
They don't even know this is
They
going
do
on,
not
and then
know.
the kid hits 17, 18 or whatever, and
Right.
they're blocked from progressing into other areas because of
Correct.
what happened when they were young.
Right. And it can change along the way. So I think definitely at high school for sure, and probably more like 7th and 8th grade, we need to really take stock. Are these children on the right path, right? We keep talking about college and career ready. Let's make sure they're really on the right path. And a lot of times parents take this path because their children are anxious, right? And now they don't have to take these tests that we've all heard about that cause all this anxiety and stress. And they're like, okay, good, my child doesn't have to take those tests. But really where it leads is a path to nowhere.
How can we get this out to the parents so that they can be, of course, this is one way to
Right.
put the show on television, but how else can we educate the parents? And then who do they go to about this? Who would take care of instituting a program that requires reassessment?
That would probably happen at the district level or within the Department of Education, that there would be a policy that they could, let's say, reassess children. They do every year. You have to have an annual IEP meeting for your child.
And that means?
That means the individual education plan. You need to reassess it every year and make sure that their goals are on target, that the kids are on track. But only every 3 years do you have a cognitive, an IQ test or tests that really delve into the child's abilities, cognitive.
And yeah, but once they do that test, do they ever take them off of this system of alternate assessments?
Not necessarily.
So
There's a missing step in the
it
process,
sounded that
right?
way, yeah, yeah.
The one child that I was speaking with the mom, I said, I believe your child is alternately assessed because they're not taking these statewide tests. She said, no, I would absolutely know about that. And she did not. And so in 8th grade was the first year he started taking tests. He's now in high school. He's passed all of his regents to date, and he would like to be a social studies teacher.
Oh, thank
great.
God, look at this. So
That
you
was just
were-
a conversation,
You were personally
right?
instrumental in getting this woman to speak up and say, wait a minute, he needs to be reassessed
Right.
so that he does no longer go through the alternate assessment
Right.
system. It's a system?
Correct. So there's 2 school districts. There's District 31, which is your general education district, right? So if you're going to your local PS 41, PS 30 school, you're in District 31. There's also District 75, which is for children that either have physical, cognitive, or behavioral disabilities. And it's it's usually smaller classroom settings. You would know these programs. But they tend to now typically be within your local public schools. It used to be that you had to go to a separate location for these programs, but now you can go within your local public school.
And that's a good thing.
I think that is a good thing, provided there are enough resources and properly trained staff to be able to help these children.
Who determines the budget for allowing more staff to help the children?
That happens, well, it's the Department of Education that gives out all of the budgets to the schools, and those budgets, typically, I've never heard of a school that said, wow, we have extra money in our budget. It's usually they're fighting for resources, kids' services. Now, the city council has now just implemented this year that they be held accountable, that they're really in compliance with the child's individual education plan and they are getting their services. So it took the city council now stepping in to make sure that children are getting the services they need.
And do they have enough workers for that and enough evaluators?
No.
See, I love when they implement policy and procedures and there's no one following up with it. This is what drives me crazy about bureaucracy.
It is getting better. Having said that, I think it's getting better because the chancellor just instituted that District 31, our district, all of Staten Island, we have a borough field support center now. So we have people that we can go right to and say, so-and-so needs an assistive technology evaluation. Where is it in the process?
Oh.
And I'll get an email or a phone call back usually within 24 hours. So it is improving. It's not there yet, but it's gotten better.
But we need to, it sounds like we really need to educate the parents. And this is
Yes.
part of what you were talking about, having advocates.
It's, parents are very powerful. Their voices are very powerful. And it's important that parents educate themselves and know what's going on in the field of disabilities, in the field of education, because they are their child's best advocate. And they need to be out there and expressing their needs for their child. And because as a provider, the government is not going to listen to us because it sounds self-serving. Whereas a parent, and I wear both hats, so I can speak as a parent how important the services are and to continue these services. We've developed these services over 40 years. Once Willowbrook, the closing of Willowbrook, has changed the face of developmental disabilities as far as services out there. Community residences were developed, etc., and agencies then started to develop. So individuals had the opportunity to be in the community and do activities. And that has enhanced their quality of life, and it should remain that way. And, with the chipping away and the dismantling of what took place 40 years ago, what is happening now is that services are gradually diminishing. The rates, as I referred to before, are being cut as well. I don't know
The rate of payment, you mean?
rate of payment, the
Okay.
rate. I don't know what the future is going to look like for young parents with children with special needs. And that's a scary thought, because I could speak personally how it has helped my daughter in her improvement, in her independence, in her productivity, in the community, within herself, within the family, and how important it is. And to see that diminish is really sad. It's very sad.
What can we do about that?
Well, we have a council. We have the Staten Island Developmental Disabilities Council, which is comprised of provider agencies, parents, advocates, self-advocates, etc. We meet monthly, and we try to have presentations and speakers come, and we try to get the word out there as to the importance of these services and how a parent's voice is so critical to ensure that the services do continue. Parents are very busy in their life. They're overwhelmed by the nature of caring for their child with a disability, as well as siblings, etc. And it's difficult, but we like to impress upon the parent it will be a lot more difficult if the services are not there.
Who determines the budget for these services?
Well, that would be determined by our legislature.
Who specifically? I mean, because I'm not familiar with how the legislature works and who funds it and
Well,
makes these decisions.
it's a state budget.
It's a state budget.
It's a state budget that, the legislators, meet and discuss, and monies are taken from places, added to places, etc.
And rearranged.
Right.
And rearranged, and the governor has the final say.
Okay, well, let's appeal to the governor.
Well, we've been doing that. We've been doing that very vehemently and very consistently, because we know the importance of the services, and to have cuts for individuals who really need the services, who really need the consistency in their lives, is really very disturbing. And I always say our children did not ask to be born with a disability, and so it is incumbent upon us to ensure that they do have a quality of life, and they need these services, and to make sure that does happen.
Did you have some thoughts?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the numbers are only going up. If you look at, how many children had autism, 10, 15 years ago, it was 1 in 10,000. It's now, 1 in 50 if we average it.
Yeah.
It's around 1 in 50 children. It's 1 in 60-something.
1 in 68 as to the number that we have right now from the CDC, but just recently a number of 1 in 43 came out, so Laura's,
Right.
going down the
I'll go
middle
right in the
there,
medium,
going
right.
the middle there.
So if you have 1 in
Yeah.
50 children now, and we all talk about how important early intervention is.
Oh, for sure.
We can provide these. We now have going to college. So about 3 years ago, there were 4 children going into CSI to college. The next year, there were 83.
Oh, you just gave me chills. That's
So the
wonderful.
potential is there.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
But if we don't fund it, the state will be taking care of a lot of these kids for the rest of their
That's
lives.
right.
There is the potential. They do need social skills help. They need vocational help. They need a lot of different services to get them to be more independent and to lead happier, healthier lives.
Right. And just to add to that, they also need residential placement, and because we as parents are not going to live forever. And I know I want to have peace of mind to know that I was part of the decision-making as to what agency that I would select for my daughter for a community residence. But there's been no residential development in 5 years. There's been bits and
On
pieces.
Staten Island, you mean?
On Staten Island, bits and pieces here and there. But there has been no ongoing residential placement at all.
Thank you, thank you. One of the thoughts and one of the future shows that we're going to have is we need to have special needs trusts put into place and families actually make legal documents. We're going to have an attorney come on that will speak to this, because what happens in families where people assume, you mentioned when you pass on, what will happen to your child. And they need to have legal documentation put into place where it's all spelled out, the funds are put aside, and the appointees are named, so that it's just not sort of up in the air, well, I thought he was going to do it, well, I thought she was going to do it. That's actually set up. So that's an area that I want to cover on the show. I'd like to take our conversation now to something you've been speaking primarily as professionals in the field. I would like to address a more personal nature when you first found out that your child was diagnosed. Who would like to speak first?
Well, I can talk about it. I mean, you always kind of knew something was a little bit different. When she went to school, that's when really the rubber met the road there. Because in school, guess what? They want you to sit down quietly, learn, be passive, do whatever you're told, and it doesn't always work out that way. My daughter is now, so it was many years, many, many difficult years, getting through a lack of understanding. And teachers were wonderful, but had not been trained.
How many years ago was this? How old is your
She
child
was
now?
diagnosed in kindergarten. She's 17 now. So it's been many years. So a lot of it was teachers hadn't been trained. There's different, with autism, it's a spectrum, right? You have, kids that are nonverbal, to kids that are verbal, to kids that have Asperger's, that are higher functioning. So, when you've got teachers, what are the strategies to work with all of these kids? So she is now a senior in high school. In elementary school, they did want to put her in District 75.
What does that mean, District 75?
That is a very restrictive environment. They wanted her in a classroom with 6 children, probably alternately assessed, right? She is now a senior in high school, fast forward. She's in the National Honor Society. Her GPA is about a 3.5.
Oh, my
great.
goodness.
She's applying to colleges. She wants to go to FIT. She
This is
performs and sings. She performs in the spring plays.
She is very social.
She's very social, but we went to social skills
This is
for
what I was going to
years,
ask. What if
years
these
and years.
programs weren't available, Governor, and whoever else makes these decisions? Your
And-
child could have gotten lost in the
Correct.
shuffle.
Correct, and social skills, quite honestly, be paid for privately because it wasn't covered.
I see. But not all parents can afford to do that.
Correct.
And did this put, when your child was first diagnosed, did it put a strain on your marriage? Did it bring you closer? How did the other siblings react? What were some of the things that went on?
It did actually bring us closer. But we had to learn a whole different way of parenting than what we knew, which, you didn't know how your parents brought you up. So discipline, for example, to understand that a child, in Maggie's case, didn't have executive functioning skills, which manifest as organizational time management. How do you work with that child? How do you not discipline her for her disability, but
For
help
instance, as an example.
So, the room is a disaster, right? Or getting homework done is a daily struggle, right? Because guess what? She wants to do what she wants to do and doesn't have the ability to prioritize, all right, I need to do this first, and I need to do this, and then I can go play.
Okay.
That just doesn't
That
exist in
order doesn't-
her
right.
psyche. So she'll also need supports when she's in college. So it did. So we had to learn totally different. And I will tell you, my husband's a retired NYPD. You know, he's used to, discipline and set ways
Discipline.
of doing things. But to his credit, he's been amazing with her.
Mm-hmm.
And really, they're as close can be.
And you have other children?
We do. I have another son, Patrick.
Who's older or younger than
He's
she?
younger than Maggie. And then we had taken in my niece for 5 years, who was in recovery from drug addiction. And she was older.
Wow. God
So-
bless you. God bless you.
Yeah, so all of them, knock wood, are doing well.
Thank God. And the programs have helped a great deal too.
Huge, huge. My niece actually was from New Jersey, but went to the YMCA outpatient drug counseling service here.
And she's sober.
And she's sober. She works in Manhattan. She has an apartment down at St. George.
Oh, wonderful. And how about for you, Laura?
I'm Donna.
Donna, I'm sorry. I told you I'd
My
go blind.
story is a little different because my daughter, as I said, is going to be 38. And back then there weren't as many services as there are today at all. And also there was not a spectrum of autism. You were either autistic or not autistic. And she had some of the traits, so it was she was kind of difficult to diagnose. And she probably at 3 years old was diagnosed. She was nonverbal. She was nonverbal till she was 4 years old.
And did you have other siblings?
Not at that
Did
time.
she rather? Mhm.
Not at that time. I have a daughter now. They're 10 years apart.
And so how was she was diagnosed, and then what happened with the family dynamic?
Well, with the family dynamic, it was just my husband and I, and he had just started law school at night when Janine was diagnosed, and it was very difficult because it was just me. And it was very hard because she had a lot of behaviors. She was very difficult. And she's not that way anymore. But back then she was. And so it was very not easy. And, but I had support from my family who would come and help me out just to give me a break at the time. But fast forward, as you said, my daughter started programs at 3 years old, and the programs are what really changed her life around and what really gave her the abilities that she has today. She is verbal. She's in a day hab program. She goes to
Wow.
program every single day, and she's, I don't think she's capable of working because she's just too trusting, and I'd
Be dangerous, yes.
I would be afraid she just is not street savvy or anything.
And
but
she lives where?
she lives at home. She lives at home because there's no residential placements going on.
This is the big concern, I
And-
understand, for parents of special needs loved ones. What is going to happen in the future? And what would you like to speak about that? We have a minute left. I'd like to give you both some closing comments. Would you like to speak first and then you?
Okay.
Or would you like to continue on that thought?
Well, the thought is that, as I said before, I think to move this forward and to have success with this is to have our voices heard and to have people advocate to ensure that the services continue, because it's proven how the services are cost-effective down the road, and most importantly, how they enable the individuals to lead the quality of life that they do today. And that's paramount to their existence to have the services.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Agreed. I think we need more funding as well. I think the more we invest in them and their future, they have great potential. And you can really, we can't just cast them aside. And there's more and more coming down the road, so
There's more and more people being diagnosed and experiencing this.
Every day.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. One thing that Donna said to me on the phone when I called her up about this was that we can never go back. And that really had an impact on me. It really impacted me, I should say. And I said, to what? And you said Willowbrook. And the audience needs to be reminded about this. So thank you for bringing light on this subject. And I want to let the guests know that you can watch Heart of the Earth on Staten Island Television on Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock on Channel 34, whether it's Time Warner or FiOS. You can also watch us in Manhattan on Wednesday afternoons at 4 p.m., 56 with Time Warner, 34 with FiOS, and we're soon going to be on Brooklyn TV. We'll let you know the stations and times. Thank you so much for watching.